you that this is the best age control ever.
What is it called?
What is it? Smooth age control. Without lying. Smooth age control with argan oil. Princess the Hair Whisperer put me on, and it's dope because it doesn't dry white. I don't know, we're age people, so you know.
Let me just change the yes. Huh? Me. Oh, okay. So I've got a tech person sitting here. So I just want to check if we are live on all the platforms. Yeah. And Instagram.
Stuff. Collex, have you ever like put on a wig or like a weave?
I that was not the face I meant to make. Sorry, I take that face back. I have not, and my face pulling is not because I have a thing against weaves or whatever. I just don't think it would suit me as a human being.
So you hate them and you hate everyone that wears them, is what you're telling me.
No. I personally, I've get out of here. You see, you're gonna start trouble. You're gonna say things. Yeah, I'm excited and I'm scared for this conversation. I'm also excited for people to get to know how naughty you are, actually.
I'm so excited. Like, welcome to like everyone that's here. Shout out to everyone who's gonna sort of watch this post the fact.
Yep.
Thank you for joining this conversation. Thank you for inviting me to have this talk with you, colleagues.
Thank you for saying yes, babe. How you been? What was your day like today? I know that you said you had a nap earlier.
Yeah, I didn't really manage. For reasons that are somewhat related to the contents of this glass itself. So cheers.
Cheers, babe.
Boom.
Okay.
How was your day?
How was what?
How was your day?
What did I do today? Yeah, today I could not get myself together at all. Like at all. I woke up, promised myself that I would get on the treadmill and have a run and then do some work. It never happened. I had a meeting. Yay.
Yeah.
I took a shower. Yay. And now I'm here having a drink with you. So fuck it, actually. Yeah, man.
So we're going to this conversation, and the reason that we're having it, I guess, is to sort of kind of highlight your new audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
That came out, I think, last week.
Mm-hmm. It came out on, last week, about a week and a half ago. Very quickly, can you see the comments on the side?
Can indeed.
Okay, cool. Then we ready to rock and roll.
There you go. Thanks for the comments. I was starting to see. Someone said, "Lerato ke." Do you know what that means, Collective?
No, I'm so happy right now. Oh, I'm in love with both of you because Lerato means love, right? So
yeah.
You know, like that was the first. What does that mean?
It means there's love. Which is nice. Yes, queen. Okay,
you
so
know that was one of.
Mm-hmm.
No. I was gonna say that was one of the first things like I thought was so fucking cool about you when I met you was just your knowledge about language. But anyway, we'll get into that.
Thank you. As I said, like your audiobook coming out, but we're gonna a little bit about that, but we're gonna talk about poetry in general. I'm kind of excited to be in the interviewing role for a change. Actually, even interviewed me. Like I think it was last year or the year before. And I'm glad that the tables are actually turning. So let's get straight into it. Do you think you're the best poet in South Africa?
I knew that you were going to pull stunts on me. I knew that you were going to pull stunts on me. I just did not know that it would be this early on. Come on. Um,
I yeah.
here's what I'll say. Here's how I'll answer that question. I think that, and this is not in comparison to other people, I think that I am at an interesting place in my own journey as a poet. And I think, like, when I look at my peers or when I look at the poetry industry, I think that I am somebody who can be looked at as doing something interesting or as moving the industry forward in some ways. So I don't know if I'm the best poet, like, I don't know about all of that, but I do know that I am a poet who's trying to shift the landscape of poetry as we've been taught it, as we know it. Or at least I feel like I'm trying to, not for anyone else, but for myself, because I get bored easily. And yeah, I mean, when I came into poetry, I just kind of felt like certain things just needed to be shaken up because I was so bored by the way that things are. I mean, you and I have spoken about this many times, like.
I know we kikied when I came back. Like obviously, I left South Africa for like years and years, and when I came back, both you and I were booked at Poetry Africa. This was like 2016, and we did kiki a lot about that, just kind of like the condition of the poetry scene. I had a lot of complaints. I felt, and I don't know if I still feel the same way, but I remember feeling like I just felt. You remember this, and being way more
What were
diplomatic.
your complaints? Tell the people your complaints, since you want to put me on blast. What were your complaints, Maya?
My complaints, I felt that a lot of the time in the poet I was witnessing was just simply not poetry. And like I sound like a snob, but like the thing is that you don't have to be classically trained for poetry. You don't have to, even study it, let's say, at a higher institution or whatever. But I do think certain things are poetry, certain things are not.
For sure.
Some things are a speech. Some things are just like
a diary entry.
A diary entry. There's prose is a real thing that exists and it has a name for a reason. It's different to poetry. Poetry does mean something, guys. It doesn't just mean words and they can be said. I don't know what are about that.
Yeah, I mean, and we've agreed on certain aspects of this and disagreed, like about how then because a lot of, so the people who are kind of can be faulted for the kinds of poetry that people get exposed to, right, are like the festivals that people attend. Open mic, not so much, because open mic, I mean, the name alone suggests it's an open mic, anything goes. You can come there, you can read your diaries, you can tell us your man left you, you can tell us, you donate 15 rand to buy a beer, like you can just tell us anything. And people who come to an open mic, vele, they're there to drink, listen to poetry, listen to all sorts of weird shit. Every now and again, a good poem might pop up, but open mics are just that, they're open. Where the issue of what we are talking about starts to come in about the kinds of poetry that make it onto spaces that are meant to be curated, right, is the lack of curation.
Right.
So, Shane, bless the poets who get invited to those spaces because, well, now they just received the invitation and all they're doing is honoring that invitation and showing up, right?
Absolutely.
And doing their thing. So if I invite you to come and do the thing, or tumengayo, of course you're going to show up there and do your thing because that's why I invited you, right? And so there isn't, if there hasn't been a conversation from my side to kind of push your content as a performer, or to require something else from you that is poetry, right? Or to demand something from you as a person who's gracing my platform that is of quality. And I want to say quality because quality depends on who you are. The problem is not so much that, because everyone is a poet these days. Everyone is a poet. Live your best life. Be the poet. We don't agree with that. The
I
problem
don't
is
agree
with the
with
curate.
that. But anyway, yeah.
No, but I'm saying in the sense of like everyone wakes up and says, I'm a poet. Okay, sharp, you're a poet. Let's not rain on your parade. Your dreams are valid. Your voice is valid. Sharp. The curation is the issue, like people who curate
Right.
spaces where there is funding, or where people pay to come and see a certain show, and there's a lack of curation in
Right.
spaces, and that's where the issue is for me, where people kind of, and also like our weird obsession with like international stuff, then you get to a festival and there are like 20 international poets, uh 5 local poets, and then like an open mic, and then also the way that these poets are put together is weird. Now as an audience member,
Right.
either you coming into contact with poetry for the first time and the whole experience is weird, or as a poetry lover, which is where your frustration comes in. Something that you said to me was quite profound a few years ago, was that to be able to listen to a Koleka Putuma, for example, I go to a festival, but it means that I have to sit through 15 diary entries, 10 prose pieces that are first drafts, right, to get to the person that I want to listen to. So,
Yeah.
curation, babes.
I totally hear you. And just to sort of be clear, like I'm definitely a poetry snob. Like I'll come out and say it. I enjoy good poetry. To me, poetry is sacred. I'm not even saying my own poetry to the people who like sort of remember me from my writing days. I'm not even talking about my own poetry. I live off of poetry in like a mental health way. Like I need poetry, and
Mm,
therefore for me it's sacred. And that's why I think, like you said, when you said, like, reading your first draft or whatever, like, I don't want to discourage people from being poets. And I'm sure you don't either. In fact, you are way, 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 way more polite about this issue than I am when me and you are talking privately. But,
yeah,
but it's like, work on it. My thing is respect it. Like, I love poetry so much. Put some effort into it. If you're not going to actually study it, which is also fine, but like read other poets, right?
yeah,
Like read other poets, consume good poets. Try
yeah,
to get feedback, even if the feedback is bad. Like, because people tend to avoid where they know that they'll get harsh feedback and just want
yeah,
to hear the positive. So I'm saying, like, be a poet, but like put some love into it, put some effort
yeah,
into it. Like, really dope, because like I think poetry is so incredibly special.
yeah.
And
But also don't get poetry feedback from other poets.
oh yeah, what do you think?
No, because like, okay, do, but maybe poets who are kind of more rigorous about the form or like the craft of writing, right? So like, and like maybe someone who has a different voice to yours, because I think in the poetry space, like we hype each other up, like, oh, and like it's about the punchlines, it's about like,
Oh no no no
how certain lines
no
land,
no!
exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like go and get feedback from someone who has an ear that's not necessarily um like used to listening to like the tone of poetry, or like the cadence of poetry. So if you go and do a poem for someone who's maybe in the music space, or in the visual art space, or in the theater space, their way of hearing words, right, is different to the people who are at an open mic or at a slam, right?
And you
Because
think
at a
that's
slam,
valuable? Hey.
oh, for sure, because a lot of the times in the poetry space, we don't speak for meaning. We speak for the punchline, or we speak for the crowd's reaction, right? And so, what poetry is for me, or what it's become lately, is that
Right.
for me, it's like, why are you telling me this? Like, why are you here? Why are you on the mic? What are you saying? Like, why is this important for you to say? Tell me the story. Don't give me gimmicks. Don't be shouting at me Also, like,
Yes.
what is this American accent that you're using on top of your Setswana accent, Khmer, and you don't even understand it yourself? Like,
Yes.
that's what's frustrating, you know? So for me, it's like, to get to like the storytelling aspect of poetry, or to get to the meaning of what your poem is, or what you wanted to do for the audience, I think it's always just best to ask someone else outside of your circle, or outside of like your industry, because they'll be able to hear you differently.
I like that, and it's so funny when you're talking about sort of punchlines and stuff, because I really think here's one thing: if nothing else that I say in this whole life gets taken to heart by anyone, let it be this one thing: that punchlines, metaphors, similes, etc., are the vehicle for what the poem is. They are not the end thing. You shouldn't mold the poem and the meaning because you want to reach an interesting like wordplay, double entendre. Those
Yeah,
tools are there to help you sort of say what you're trying to say. I think for me anyways, I think meaning is first. And when you can
yeah,
use all these tools to get out what you are trying to say. But a lot of this is like a lot of poetry slams and stuff. Of course, they encourage that thing of like punchlines. Like we wanna, you know what I
yeah.
mean? And so what's your thinking on poetry slams and the slam sort of world and genre in general?
People dog that space, you know, like a lot of, and particularly like the academic space, you know, has, and there's a poet who talks about this so like, Joshua Bennett has the most amazing quote about slam poetry, and how people, particularly in academia, kind of talk about slam poetry or the slam space as the thing that is opposite to poetry that exists in the academic space. So they kind of associate slam poetry as, you know, the street version of the academic version of poetry, right? And they say that almost in a way to kind of to put a hierarchy of which kind of poetry is more valid, or more smart, or more sophisticated. um, and the thing that Joshua Bennett says is that, you know, like, those two spaces serve different functions, you know, and sometimes not even. So for me, like, slam serves a purpose, you know, like, and also there is a way that slam spaces can be curated that could, what's this, shape poets into being poets who write and read more rigorously, right? Instead of just showing up there to win a 500 rand, or to like beat your chest and be like, oh, I'm better than Maya, you know? Or like the bravado that happens backstage. That space has the potential to be a learning space, also about politics, you know, because the slam space is political. It's deeply political, you know? Like, you have, you know, poets who identify as male getting up in that space talking about women's bodies, you know. And the slam space is an incredible opportunity for us to challenge men to stop writing poems about women's bodies, or to stop writing poems where they tell us what to do with our bodies, right?
Right.
And also to challenge poets to write just a little bit deeper, also to read other people, man, like, and
Super
also
important.
to, yeah, because that's also the other thing. We poets don't read, and it's evident, unfortunately, you know. And but also to challenge, the thing that I'm most passionate about is that space is the perfect ground to facilitate a more, I hate the word authentic, but to facilitate a relationship where poets can have an actual relationship with their actual voices, where that you don't think your poem or your voice is more valid because you're using an American accent, or another
Mhm,
accent, or the kind of voice that's deemed acceptable in slam, you know.
mhm.
Because what you have now, it's like someone will get up on stage and be like, hi, my name is Maya, and the poem I'm going to be doing is a poem about champagne, and champagne means something in my grandmother's heritage, right? And then they take a breath, and then the poem's about to start. champagne. Like, what is the there's a yeah, and there's an incredible voice practitioner who did his master's on the schizophrenic voice, and he
Yes.
talks about this shift that people do, like code switching, the shift that
Mm-hmm.
people do in performance spaces that
That's so
makes
interesting.
you, yeah, that makes you feel like whatever text you deliver in another voice will be deemed more acceptable or will win you more points in that space, right? And he interrogates that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Um, I mean, like when I after this, I want to kind of find that paper and post it because I think it's such an incredible thing to understand why it is that we change our voices when we
Mm-hmm.
want to tell our poems or when we want to tell our stories. And slam is perfect for all of that, to challenge all of that shit.
Right. I like that a lot. You obviously like. I mean, you come to poetry from like a slightly different direction. You studied theater and performance, right? So I think you also come at it with that kind of understanding. And I must say that, the first poem, I think a lot of us, the first instance we had of sort of interacting with your work, for a lot of us, it was on your poem, Water, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Massive, massive, massive deal. And I just remember the shift was seismic. Like, it was just like I had goosebumps. Like, I was done. Like, when I heard that poem, I
Mm-hmm.
was done. Like, you went in so many places, but also I felt that you had a voice, you brought a voice that I felt
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just like very typical. I went no 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 no. Like, I just, like, I thought your voice was so crisp. There was genuine anger. There was, I mean, it was incredible. And following you, I was like definitely hating at the time. Like, I was like, what? Like, I have a poem that's going viral. Like, who's this chick? What's going on?
Oh,
Um,
really? I didn't even know that. Really? Bitch. I'm glad you love me
oh no,
now.
but I was definitely never that. I love poetry so much that I really but in the schizophrenic voice. You guys, this
These comments are wild.
is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked. Like, I don't know if I've ever really like sort of expressed this to you. And like, I mean, we're friends. I'm sure like if you're watching this, you can tell already. Like, we have a rubber and whatever. But I don't think I've ever really shared like it was a moment like in my life, hearing Water and then like actually getting to meet you and then like doing Poetry Africa together and whatever. Like, I mean, I don't even know. Like, I guess I don't know. You can take this in any sort of direction. I mean, we were talking about the kind of performance aspect of poetry, but I kind of want to know why poetry, because you come from sort of a performance side and you still engage a lot within the theater space. But your writing is so piercing and so like precise and on point and at parts like delicious and like it's just, and every time I listen, there's other layers of stuff I hadn't picked up before. Which it's like it's such a treat. Honestly, it's such a treat to watch you, to read you, to listen to you. It's really a treat and like a pleasure.
Uh,
Like, so I
I
wanted to
feel like
say,
this goes on record because you are a poetry snub. Like, I just need people to know that you actually hectic. Like, but I like I appreciate that about you. Like, I don't know if that's something that people know about you, but like I appreciate how you get intense about poetry and but I think about literature in general, but you get intense about it because you care about its the crafting of it, like for you, if a thing is bad, it's bad, like there's no way around it, or if
I'm
it's like if
terrible
the
in that
thing,
way. It's,
yeah, or if it needs work, then it needs work. And you're never gonna mince your words about that. So to hear you say that means a lot, and it's also funny that at the time that we both met, we had poems that were going viral that had well, not similar subject matter. Well, similar subject matters actually. Yours was when it rains, it pours.
Ooh, sometimes it pause. Ooh, I should put that back on YouTube actually.
Take it down.
Yeah, I did because I was like, Sho Madjozi, I don't want to confuse people. Like, ooh, my the poet.
Woo! In another life, I want to come back to that. Confuse people how? How would you bring up your former poetry before Sho Madjozi confuse people? Speak into the microphone.
I was really, really, really interested in like pop. I was like really interested in pop. I was really interested in expressing myself in sort of a different kind of way. Like, I mean, there's a range of reasons why I decided I wanted to go into sort of rapping. And like people that have heard my story know that I came into like music via wanting to ghostwrite for other people and I wanted to write raps. I'm like, I genuinely like have so much fun with language. I just like I love flowing, I love constructing intricate flows, I love languages, I love language. Like but on this specific Sho Madjozi thing, like I was interested in having like a very clear image. You know what I mean? Like I was very interested in like people really being able to understand like this is what this person is and this is what this person stands for. And sometimes, unfortunately, there isn't a lot of room for nuance, like in that kind of space. But it's like a sacrifice that I was willing to make if it meant that a certain message of mine could reach certain people that sometimes
Right.
like my poetry wasn't reaching, etc. And we've spoken about this as well, and this like breaks my heart so much, which is about kind of the audience of poetry, right? Like sometimes I feel like the most beautiful things are said, or like things that are like necessary to hear, are said in poetry spaces, but they're said to people who already agree with them. Because generally, if you're like in like already in a room ready to listen to poetry, generally you're not that person that needs to be told like like GBV is wrong, right? Like generally, these are people who are quite sort of like open already to hearing those kind of messages. If you're gonna listen to a Koleka, you're going to have a hard time if you have very like not progressive views, right? So generally, it's people already. You have to think about like how we can make poetry live in other spaces. But anyways, in terms of like as far as that's gone poetry-wise, I feel like you've done exceptionally. And then, but for me, I think I kind of wanted to go in a different direction and say, what about doing? Like, what about putting on Eshbelani as a way to say, be proud of your culture, as a way to say, as a Tsonga person, you're valuable, etc. Like, just like it was a different thing. That's why I took. That's why. That's why I kind of took that change.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there was another conversation that you and I had where we spoke about the things that you have to give up. And I won't go into detail about like what we spoke about, but we spoke about the things that you have to give up to gain a certain level of influence and access in other spaces so that you can do the work that you actually want to do, you know? So it's not that Gom or, you know, like popular culture is the arrival point for you. No, that's the avenue that you want to use to then speak about and give visibility to the things that you actually care about, that you want to talk about, you know. For
I think
example, what?
sorry, babe. No, I was gonna say you actually said something about mass intellectualism, or like how do you take an idea and sort of put it like give it to a wider audience. Sometimes that is to change sort of the form. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, Maya, the poet, serves a particular function, right? Like he moves in the world in a particular way. And in the interview that we did together, like I think it was last year or 2 years ago, you talk about like what those two embodiments do in the world, you know, Sho Madjozi, what Sho Madjozi does and what Maya the poet does, and how both of those embodiments kind of point people in the direction of the things that you care about that are still very much you. They're not outside of you, you know, but they're just two different avenues. I don't even know how we got here. I said this to
Actually,
you
I
last
have a
night.
question though.
Yeah.
I knew this was gonna happen. But anyways, I have a question in terms of kind of like content, in terms of like a poet. We'll talk about poets in particular, but maybe it applies to artists in general. Do you think that the poet has a responsibility to address social issues of like their environment, whether it's inequality, etc.? Do you think that that's the responsibility of a poet?
Oh, like this, I think it's the responsibility of everyone, right, to do that work. But because we understand our calling, because we have the mic, right? Like both literally, metaphorically, spiritually, poets have the mic, right?
Right.
And so what you do with that mic, you have an opportunity there to do something. I don't necessarily think it's like the responsibility of poets to kind of bear this burden of always pointing people to social ills, right? Like to
Right.
always, whenever we take the mic, that we have to bring light to the devastation or like the wounds of the world, right? Because
Yeah.
also people need a break, like people, we are also multifaceted. We also have experiences that range from love to joy to sex to drugs to
Yeah.
hair to clothes, like so we are not the sum total of pain or trauma or tragedy or social ills. So I think it's our responsibility to to talk about the things that you feel like we've been called to speak about, and to make people feel the things that you feel like are important to feel for you or your cause, right? And that's not going to be for everyone. What's important to me might be trees and the environment and sustainability. What's important to the next poet might be finance and money and wealth, right?
Right.
And the other person land, for example. So, and the other person gender-based violence. But also, here's the frustrating thing though about not just about poetry, about society in general, right? Is that people are only able to consume people in boxes or in like certain parameters, right? So if
Absolutely.
and I see this with me, like I came out, how people got to know me was through water, right? Like I came out with this deeply political poem where I was like, fuck you, fuck whiteness, fuck colonialism, and
A lot of things were being
yeah,
told that in that poem.
yeah. But then I could not, for a lot of people, I could not then move into a space where I could write poems about a
Soft.
sexual experience, for example. Yeah, soft, what is considered like soft poems or like more gentle, quieter. Like if I came out now and I was like a sustainability poet, for example, whatever the fuck that means, it would take it would take people a minute to be like, hypo, now she's telling us we must shower for 2 minutes, we must,
Right.
save water, but then it's a different kind. So people are not able to kind of allow you to be a vast human being who is able to kind of hold many truths and hold many responsibilities, if we want to talk about responsibility.
I think that is so very true. It's even linked to the whole sort of Sho Madjozi and like seeing like the other person is just being able to sort of be one kind of side. But then Koleka, if there's anyone who's kind of forced people to see that you have like breath, it's obviously like you've really done that. Like you have forced it. Like I've seen you go into spaces where probably everyone's looking at you and saying like water, 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 and like giving yourself the time and like just the self carve to say, yo, I'm gonna do this poem because currently this is what I'm going through and stuff. And I think you've really forged a place for yourself where like I so enjoy a lot of your stuff. And like I even think that even with your political stuff, there's another way of expressing it. Like you have this like loving way of saying even things that can be quite harsh. I mean, one of my favorite poems of yours is about the hand-me-downs, and it's quite a scathing critique of consumerism in South Africa, Black consumerism in South Africa, which is like really quite a big, but you did it with so much love. Are we still online? I hope so. I'm just
yeah, we are.
just gonna keep.
You froze for a second, but you are back.
Yes. And I think you had such a loving way of saying it and saying like, yes, like obviously Black South Africans, we have a massive issue with consumerism. It pains me so much, but like really only you would have the love to say like a 600 Rand sneaker on the dinner table is a manifestation of a hunger in us. To explain it, to say, I get you. Like, yes, it's bad. We're here, but I get the reason. You were so gentle. You were so sort of kind and compassionate. But like the poems that I really like enjoyed on Collective Amnesia are the ones with like so much detail about your growing up, of the little things, the Rama, this, the Pakanya, that, the small interactions. These things are so beautiful and so well recollected for a collection called Collective Amnesia.
Are you still here? Oh, yeah. I mean, I think so the chapters are called like they're related to memory, right? So inherited memory, buried memory, post memory. And for me, like I think I don't think it was like this when I first wrote Collective Amnesia. I think I understand, for me, the relationship of remembering is so deeply connected to the process of forgetting, right? That we hold on to memory in opposition to forgetting. That remembering sometimes, I mean, like for example, just take the political landscape of South Africa. That for the people who benefited from the structure and the architect of apartheid, right? For them to be comfortable with what has she left on your side too? Oh, here you are. Oh, yeah, you're back. Hi. You left for a second.
Counting me during the people. You see,
It's fine. Guess what? At least you look cute though.
I'm looking at my router like, don't lie.
Don't be that guy.
You see, don't lie.
um,
But anyway, sorry. Yes, go on.
so I was saying, like, like for people, often memory gets weaponized in South Africa, like a lot, like apartheid was a long time ago. Just forget about it, right? Like memory is weaponized in this country, and done so to kind of push a different narrative, or to push a narrative to make people remember, or to hold on to the things that don't implicate the people who still benefit from the architecture of like that pain and the past, right? And so for me it was also important to remember the past, but also to remember it through the lens, if I'm being honest, that it was handed down to me, right? So I never lived through apartheid. I was born in 93. So the things that I know, they were taught to me, they were handed down to me by the stories that they were told in the home. And but that was not the only thing that existed in those environments. There was also irama and rooibos, like that. Like there were also other memories that coexisted with the difficult and uncomfortable memories that were either handed down or passed on, or that our parents had to live through. And so for me, like in remembering in collective amnesia, to say to remember is to undo the forgetting, and to remember is to kind of trace the things that people want you to forget, and to trace the things that you don't want to forget for yourself. Like even like the love poems, like as much as some of those lovers and those relationships were, yeah, I came out of there crawling, as much as I came out of some of them crawling. There are parts of those relationships that I do want to remember, because I loved those people. We
And that's
shared,
it's true, because even of poverty, it isn't just the bleak. There is that entanglements, not in the sort of Jada Pinkett Smith way, but yeah, like entangled in that is always like her own, yeah, let the details. I absolutely live for it. So I want to sort of talk shop a little bit just in terms of like, we here like just kind of celebrating and talking a little bit about, the audiobook of Collective Amnesia, which just came out. And how can people get that? And while you're talking about that, I kind of wanted maybe people in the comment section to like ask questions, so like we can really maybe spend the last sort of 10 minutes or so answering their questions. But absolutely, it's a must get. I mean, I've gotten the book like twice even, because I lost the first one or someone stole it. So I read the book, but still I feel that the audiobook was like something really important. I felt to hear your voice, to hear, I mean, because watching you perform is a treat, and hearing that on the, it's worth it. So definitely worth getting, even if you read the poems or whatever. I definitely think it's a different way of enjoying it. How can people get the audiobook?
This, I think you can see it, this website link. If people just go on the website, kolekaputuma.com, they'll find it there. It's that simple. Yeah, and I think my manager and I was sitting here, we were talking about maybe people can have a special code after today as also like a gift to everyone who's joined this discussion. We'll name it after you. We'll call it Sho Madjozi. Give me a number.
Number 9.
Sho Madjozi 9. That's the thing that people can use, and they can access the audiobook at another price. But kolekaputuma.com, shop talk, that's where they can get it.
Super, super, super nice. I was gonna ask you a little bit more. I had like all these like fun questions for you. But I would say, definitely get the audiobook. I'm so lucky, guys. I got a free version, so like, but it is so worth it. I'm probably gonna go and purchase the original as well. I've been really, really loving it. I'm like kind of just over halfway through, really enjoying picking up other parts that I missed on like sort of the printed versions, and it's like really, really, really cool. But I think, obviously, Collective Amnesia, that's something I think it deserved to have more done with it, etc. But you, obviously, since you've written that, most of that work, you've been working on new material. Am I gonna be able to trick you into reading us some new material? Because I think probably people watching would probably enjoy that, and I would enjoy that a lot.
Okay, because it's you, Maya. I'm gonna share 2 poems from the new book because it's you and because we are here. And yeah, so I'm gonna pretend like this is me on the phone calling you to be like, hey, babe, what do you think about these 2 poems in my new book? And I'm gonna pretend like the other people are not here, but they're gonna get it anyway. But yeah, so I've been working on this new book for like the past 2 or 3 years now. And sort of I'm diving into the archive of Black women in the entertainment space, hyper visible Black women who did a lot for art, for literature, but who got lost in what is now deemed as the canon, right? I don't want to talk too much about what that is, but I'll share one of the poems from the new book. I'm very nervous, but okay, let's go.
I'm excited, and now with brand new material, Koleka Putuma.
Europe asks if it can touch my hair. Backspace. Europe touches my hair. My braids flung across its borders. It pats me down in Dutch, colonialist memorabilia, inherited invasions, pencil test, yes sir, nah, no sir. Raised arms and parted hips, I have mastered how not to look angry. Backspace. Threatening. A visa with an expiry date and a return ticket confirms I will perform and leave. I will sign books, careful to be understood, careful to hear and spell each of their names correctly, while they mispronounce and mutilate mine. I will smile, with the injury of my ancestors still hemorrhaging on my face, gather my braids back from the blue eyed official, say, Danke, Che, and move towards the carousel. In Europe or overseas, you are the sickness and the cure. In Europe or overseas, the platform, backspace, the stage saves those who know how to save themselves. And then the last one,
My goodness.
um,
And you're so funny. You crack me up because you have such an interesting sort of love-hate relationship with kind of the space that takes you in, and that is just prime, like, juicy tea. I
also
I
'cause-
love it. It could have its
yeah,
own episode of this. Like,
it's also because, and I think this is something you understand. Like, I have once it's something that no one can prepare you for, right? Like being visible and being made invisible by being visible, right? Like that people see you, but they only see you to consume you, or that they only see you to take from you, right? That it's not you, Sho Madjozi, that I'm seeing. It's Sho Madjozi, the thing that I've made in my mind and what it is that that thing gives me, right? And so I think I have a love hate relationship with what those spaces afford us and give us in terms of what it is that we're able to do, like the capital that it affords us. But I think I have a hate relationship with how it treats our bodies, how it treats our voices sometimes, and also its lack of respecting our boundaries as people. And then also like who we are in the European space is a whole other life. Like
absolutely.
to get into
It
that, like
And I think you're brave enough to even use your voice and your words and stuff to even address in ways that would not necessarily benefit you. Like, I mean, one thing that like blew my mind. I don't know if you tweeted this or you said this to me in person, but I think it was like publicly though. Something about the way that sometimes even fans, like even people that love your work, can it can hurt you. Like it can be hurtful the way they could speak. I can't remember sort of how you were saying that, but I was struck by the bravery.
yeah. I think like especially in this day and age and how social media has been constructed in this area that we're living in, that the bound like lines are blurred, that fans confuse cyber stalking and message bombing and crossing your boundaries as being a fan, right? Or as innocently, I love you, but I love you, right? And they are constant like, I will follow you because I love you. And how we don't see those things as people crossing boundaries sometimes, and also as kind of like a violation of your space and of your humanness, actually, that people will follow you from your performance space to your car. And what that means as a woman in South Africa today, like, actually, you're
Mm.
not like, just be aware of the context that we live in. You can't follow me back to my
I've
car,
seen
you
people
know
touch you, like, I won't talk about what sort of happens to me, but I've seen people touch you, like out of, you like they've seen you on stage and just sort of appear and touch you. And I really think it's something people don't think about. But really, if you were not this person honest to you, it would be a completely different story.
yeah,
It's not something that we do to normal people, but when it's a
yeah,
like a stage and who we feel a degree of like we own, because she's shared her thoughts, etc. Anyways, I
yeah.
just want to remind people to like send their questions because we're gonna spend the last couple of minutes answering questions. But before that, I would, can you please bless us with the last poem from your new collection?
And this one is quite short. Jukebox on demand. How many times did you have to click? How many times did you slip your mouth into a straitjacket in an interview? When they asked you to ululate with a pronunciation spread-eagled over your bloodline's twisting grave, every time you were asked, so is it Mekeba, Mukirby, Mukaba, Mikeba? And you, polite and unoffensive, Makeba, yes.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
So that was for you. Only you would make me do shit like that. FYI.
Wait, Koleka Putuma. Thank you so much. That was just so nice. I got lost for a second. I was like, off in another place. Like, that took me there. You also have that voice. Even someone here, is it Matavanam, also commented like Koleka's voice, hearts, hearts, hearts. And that's what you get to hear when you have the Collective Amnesia audiobook as well. You get to sort of hear, imagine hearing Koleka sort of speaking you through like, and her whole anthology full of
2
of
hours.
stuff. It's really awesome. It's really awesome. So I don't know, did you see any questions that you thought maybe we could sort of talk to, or what you thinking,
I'm
boo?
looking here. People are just sharing love. I'm looking here. There aren't any. Why do we change? Okay, I think we answered that.
That means we were thorough. We no stone and
I think comments, mostly comments.
we just got a new question now from the youth.
Oh, someone's asking, hey, I work at a bookstore in New York. I'm wondering now that you own your work, how distribution works. Interesting.
We didn't even talk about that part.
Yeah.
The ownership of your own work is a whole thing. You've had a transition from sort of being in musical terms, having a record label, to kind of being an independent artist. You want to share a little bit about what that is?
It's interesting. I don't know how many people know that like your first album actually was not through a record label, if I'm correct. I feel like that's a
Absolutely.
whole other life on its own. But recently, a lot of people know that Collective Amnesia, I released it through a small independent publishing house called Ukanga, and I've recently just taken that back. And just to answer this person's question quickly, how distribution works is that you just email me and we sort out the distribution. So I've just started a company called Mañano Media, that's become both the housing place for all my picks and IP, but also has become the distribution place for all of that as well. That's been an interesting journey that I feel like a lot of people may not realize like what it takes in terms of, like, I was just 2 years ago, I could never have taken my rights back to my work just because I didn't have the capital and the capacity and the time to do so, because it will cost you money. It requires a team. It just requires you to be more than one person, right?
I love how organized you are, though. You've really sort of taken this thing and you've kind of formalized it in a way. I don't know anyone of our generation who's really taken poetry to that level. And I'm sorry, I'll say it's like sort of business kind of side of it. I find everything of yours it's accessible. It's you are very organized, and I like that, and I think it shows that we actually support these clips let's go her, even though she's invading her space by doing such a but let's follow you and like just let us know if anything can help. Like if there's ever a time where we would want to support you more, where lovers of your work should support you more, it's right now kind of go to show you like our like solid love and support. Are you okay if I move on from that question?
Yes, do it. I don't know if there are other for both Koleka and Sho, please tell us a bit about your writing process. I think this is a super interesting question for you because I would think that you have multiple writing processes, but what is your writing process, babe?
Depends what I'm writing. If I'm writing a song, I have so many different. I've tried different techniques as well. Like sometimes I'll start with the melody, like I want it to sound like this, and then I'm like, cool, like let me put some rhymes into this. Like I have so much, and I think for the most part, I try to sort of have fun. I try to explore and experiment with the different languages that I speak, and my main thing, especially with my first album, was to declare that like I'm my own person, and like you're not gonna tell me what to do, and I'm just gonna sort of be out there, which in itself I think was, if not revolutionary, then just say like, yeah, I'm gonna be one person. I was like, and so now my next one is like a little bit more grown. I'll be releasing an EP at the end of November. So I'm thinking a little bit more in terms of yes. So I have all sorts, and I keep a journal. I think that's important if you want to keep a daily journal. I think I write, grief. I've recently lost. I recently lost my sister, and that's like I couldn't believe. Like it just like catapulted me into this place where like, oh, for a while I thought I can't do the music thing, and I just was really really like difficult space for me. So sometimes it's me because I deal with different like ways of writing, but that's true for you too, and that and certain things that I feel like the music, etc. So I like explore and experiment. But yeah, I'm excited for the new stuff. Is like slightly more mature, slightly more grown up. So I'm excited.
I'm excited.
And
I saw something that you
question.
posted and I was like, I'm excited. When you were like, it doesn't matter when you drop, it just matters that when you drop, listen. I love that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's and I also want to say like a little bit of boring stuff about if you want to be a writer is really about the consistency, the practice. Sometimes if you can't write, I think go on these pages that give you like writing prompts and stuff, and it'll be like today write a poem about this and that. Today write a poem using like that has this word and that. Sometimes if you need the push to just write, there's also like very corny sounding ways of doing it, but you have to do it. Now, the answer to this is what I'm now going to now because I want to know, how do you go about this writing thing?
It's shifted like over the years. So I love what you said about, like one of the beautiful things about like this. I mean, in the beginning of lockdown, it was a bit annoying because everyone was going online. But now the beautiful thing is that a lot of things are virtual and they're accessible virtually. And so so I've started to dedicate my Sundays to poetry. And so that's like on Sundays I write or I read or I share poetry, right? And a Sunday ago I did like this poetry workshop by Safia El called The Absence of Presence. And so I take myself through these online workshops where I'll attend a workshop online to be able to facilitate a writing process that's different from my own. Because if I'm honest, I'm not disciplined at all. Like these writers are like, oh, I have a writing practice. I'm like, what? Like I'm just like, I feel like I'm now in a place where I'm starting to want to become more disciplined about that. And one of the ways of doing that for me is to Google some of my favorite writers and see if they have like online workshops. If a festival has like a writing webinar, I'll attend that. So that really helps me get into like because also like there's an amazing video by Jasmine Mines who talks about like the difference between the inspired writer and the craftsman, and the
Yes.
difference is that inspiration is an unreliable source, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fleeting, so you can't depend on being inspired. That if you are the kind of artist who's like, I will do something when I'm inspired, then you're not going to be the kind of craftsman or craftsperson who gets
You'll be
into.
broke. Like I just put it the way you actually mean. You'll be
No, but like you won't be disciplined about your work. You're not going to get into this rigorous practice of writing, right? And so you have to write every day. Otherwise, now you want to write when you're inspired. When are you going to be inspired? Once a month,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, that's not possible. It isn't. And it's amazing to hear like someone at your level to actually still have the like wanting to learn, wanting to like improve their crafts. And I think that there's a huge lesson in that. There's a huge lesson in that. Generally, it's people who like kind of have this confidence of like I just wake up and I'm like a poet. Generally it's not. It will end in tears, you know. And it's good to learn your craft to get better. It's good to learn new techniques and stuff like that. So we've pretty much done an hour.
Yeah.
I'm
I don't think we can answer any more questions, but I'm also happy that people came, engaged. Someone was asking Jasmine who Jasmine Mans, Mans, just to answer that. But babe, thank you for being. Yeah, you and I can go for hours, but thank you for thank you for being here. Thank you for guiding this conversation, for entertaining my things. Oh, my manager just told me that the discount code for the audiobook is until Friday, and it's Sho Madjozi 9.
nice. And have you
Thank
guys spelled it?
you.
Because you know a lot of people like to forget the Sho Madjozi.
The what?
A lot of people like to forget the D in Sho Madjozi. So do you guys have it there?
It's also on the screen here. So if you misspell it, then I don't know what you're doing with your life. Also, babe, I think your chair is so cool. Can people see your chair before we go?
My chair?
Yes.
You,
It's
how did
so
you even see
cute.
that?
When we were just before we came on, and you went and fetched something. I was like, oh, that's cute.
Thank you. Thank you so much, baby. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, babe.
www.kolekaputuma.com.
Thank you, babe. I'm gonna say goodbye to the people now. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm gonna discontinue the live, and then I will catch you on the other side of this. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. And the video will also be available, I'm guessing, so watch out for that if you missed part of it, or you want to refer someone else to this conversation or relive it.
Babe, I appreciate you. I appreciate your heart, your spirit, your craft, your presence, your voice, all of your beats, all of them, all 1,000 of them on your hair. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much, and your work as well. And thank you for having this conversation with me, man. I was dying to talk about poetry, so you're the best.
All right. Bye, people.
Ciao, everyone.